1980, when 14 Kapunda schoolchildren came out here on a dare. It was a bright moonlit night. They chose a double grave to gather around. They waited. Then came a raw scraping sound. What they saw fixed them in terror. A young girl in a long white gown, carrying a lantern, moved through the cemetery. The seemingly transparent figure floated up the hill towards the reformatory before returning to the cemetery and disappearing into the earth. Earth that was left damp and with a message.
There was a round circle, wet circle. Within that circle were the numbers, lowercase, what they thought was a B, an R, and then a V with the number 9. I believed that they got the P, they got the B mixed up with a P, and PRV9 means Proverbs 9. I looked up Proverbs 9, and chapter 18 in Proverbs 9 states the following: "But he knoweth not that the dead are there," a lowercase h, so they didn't mean the divinity, "and her guests are in the depths of hell."
Kevin McNeil now believes he knows who that girl is, the same one who took comfort from Rick Thiel. Her name, Ruby Bland, resident of the reformatory, buried in an unmarked grave. It's said she died giving birth on November the 28th, 1909, the same day Archbishop O'Reilly announced the closure of St. John's. It is almost as if this place lives on memories. History plagues Kapunda. One of Australia's most gruesome mass murders happened nearby. This very cell held the 7 Aboriginal men accused of killing Mrs. Rainbird and her young family. Every day during the inquest, the men huddled inside the cell while mounted troopers tried to control a lynch mob baying for their blood. They were eventually taken to Adelaide for trial. The 4 found guilty were hung. Today, strange things still happen in both the cells and the adjacent courthouse.
There's no way I'll sleep in the courthouse at night.
Clive Hughes is the proud owner of a building he wouldn't go into at night, until now.
But I've had some strange experiences in here, so I'm expecting to hear some noises, maybe some footsteps or some banging noises. Everything's very quiet at the moment, but I'm not comfortable in here. No, I've got to keep moving. I think I'll move outside now, it's not too flush in here. No, I won't go in the courthouse again.
Clive lasted 8 minutes, turned off the night vision camera and left. It seems the courthouse has been like this for ages. Former owner Sonia Lee had more than one experience.
Walked up to a couple of steps up to the podium, and I felt this leg across my 2 legs, and I tripped and I fell flat on my face. And I thought, well, this is strange, dreaming, you know, because I really could feel it. I was fast asleep and I woke up, and there was this evil, you could feel it. And it was that bad I didn't even dare move or breathe.
Normal people here see things, feel things. Visitations and sightings do not only plague believers. Skeptics like Laura Marshall admit that.
Well, I was out at the reformatory, it would have been a couple of years ago now, and I actually went out, I was doing a newspaper article for one of the local papers, and I decided that I would actually look at some of the early graves that actually are out at the reformatory. And basically looking straight ahead on the left-hand window of the front of the reformatory, I saw a black figure of a man pass through there with quite a wide brim hat on and like a long black cloak. And I wouldn't have believed it, but I was actually with somebody else at the time, and they looked at me and said, "Did you see that?" And I looked at them and said, "Did you see that?"
But it is not about seeing things. Stare at a wall long enough and you'll start seeing things. A face, a figure. But in this town, there are so many with experience that many seem to have shared.
I was over there looking out towards the front door. The front door was open, moonlight night, and a figure walked across the doorway. And I didn't say anything. I went out, I came back, I picked up a piece of paper, and I sketched what I saw.
It is the likeness of Monsignor George Williams, parish priest, who died in Kapunda in 1920. Now buried, perhaps uncomfortably, alongside the troubled Father James Martin.
I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see.
Very strong knocks. And I just laid and listened, and they would come in groups of 3, and then there'd be a small gap between them. And I looked around the room and thought, now where could they be coming from? And there was just nowhere. Out of sheer terror, I just blurted out the Lord's Prayer, and it stopped. And from then on, more things started to occur. The TV would be turned up full volume. The radio in the kitchen would be turned up full volume. I had some little statues that would be turned around, facing the other way. And the smells were probably the most terrifying. And I remember one night I came home from a rehearsal, and my brother was outside of the house quite distressed, and I said, "What's the matter with you?" He said, "I'm not going back inside that house." And I said, "Why? What's happened? Where are the kids?" He said, "Inside the house." And I said, "Well, what's happening? What's going on?" He said, there were footsteps and no one there. There was a baby crying. He said the dog and the cat went crazy. He said, "I'm not going back in there." And so I went inside the house, and yes, the dog and cat just dived at my legs and would not leave my side. And I rang the minister, and he said, "Just get out of the house."
At the minister's urging, she told her story to the congregation. She says half believed her, and the other half dismissed her. Kapunda is one of those rare Australian towns where there were almost more churches than pubs. By any reckoning, it is a very religious town, even today. But religion has no answer for the challenge facing Donna Warner. Her home is literally infested with ghosts.
When something happens to you immediately, it frightens the life out of you. But when it happens on a daily basis, you've got your children screaming, coming out of rooms through the day because there's a man in the room, or your child wakes up a week after Christmas screaming because there's a little boy in bed with him. And you know very well that there's an elderly man that walks around here, you've seen them yourself, or you know that there's a little boy drowned 100 years ago in our underground rainwater tank. You know they're here. You have clocks that don't work, that tick. You have cupboards that open and shut in front of you in broad daylight. You have images walk past the window and you know there's no one here. You know, we had a pram went up our driveway 20 foot on a day exactly like today with very little wind. We can't explain that.
If there is one building that everyone believes is the most haunted place in the town itself, it's this place, the North Kapunda Hotel. The pub has seen busier days, but nowadays many guests live on here, ignoring the moderate tariff.
I'll leave those handles in a position, and quite often I'll go down there and that's not how I left them. So I started then to be deliberate in how I set them up, and invariably they do change.
Imagine how it would feel not to be welcome in your own business. When Heather Hogan took over here, she knew it was haunted. After all, the previous owner, Sheila Puro, told her.
We sort of heard babies crying upstairs, and we went looking for them and couldn't find them, and they slowly went away. Doors opening and closing, shoes going missing quite a lot. You know, you get one, you haven't got the other one, you go and it's in another room. Crockery, cutlery on the table. When some of the girls, when they set the dining room up, went out and come back in again, and all the knives would be missing.
This room has a feeling. I have no idea what I feel in this room, but I don't feel me in this room. And I have a piano back in the corner with a little table lamp on it, which I switch off before I go to bed. And there's lots of ornaments and stuff on that piano. And invariably, when I walk towards that piano, those ornaments rattle. And I didn't take a lot of notice of it in the beginning because these floors are wooden and uneven and whatever. But then I started to take a bit of notice because sometimes it didn't happen. I thought, well, that's a bit strange. Why is it not happening tonight, and why did it happen last night? So I thought, well, maybe there is somebody living in this room. So now I go up to there, and if it's happening, I just say, well, excuse me, I'm just about to turn the light off and good night, and I walk out.
But it is the cellar of this hotel that has the most sinister reputation. Alone in the cellar, Heather Hogan feels uncomfortable.
Now you can see here 2 rooms this would have been. This would have been the servants' quarters. You can see a fireplace down the end there, and perhaps maybe a bedroom or something like that. I don't particularly like that room. It doesn't give me a very good vibes in that room at all. Because, well, I don't know, there seems to be somebody else living down here who either doesn't want me around, I don't know. I don't feel really, really welcome in that room. At the back of the hotel, there's another staircase for the cellar. They have a pair of batwing doors, which are very heavy, full length of the doors. They've got no locks on, but they do come in together. They do open outwards. Now, for those doors to open outwards on their own, you're going to have a very strong wind internal of the hotel. That's absolutely impossible. I shut them, and I'll get up in the morning and they're open.
Doors that open by themselves, the cold, the crying, the fear that many feel for this cellar. Can it be just imagination? I was not to know at the time, but soon I would have my own disturbing confrontation in the North Kapunda hotel cellar.
What's that? Oh, shit.